In the past, before nursery pots became synonymous with plastic, plants were potted and sold in terracotta pots. I personally love terracotta pots. It is actually a healthy environment for plant roots and obviously has a very earthy appeal when it comes to home decor. However, terracotta pots over time do require some maintenance to look good, especially when using it to pot plants that require regular watering or using it in hot and humid countries where you have to continuously water your plants. Because of the porous nature, terracotta pots tend to absorb a lot of water from the soil, and this over time leads to a white mold-like formation which also stains the pot and looks pretty bad. So be it to just spruce things up and add more design or to keep your pots from going old and stained, you can paint your terracotta pots in several exciting ways. Hi everyone, I'm Anusha. If you're new to my channel, Nest Artfully, I talk about home decor, DIYs, and since I'm a crazy plant lady, a lot of plant care tips too. In today's video, I'm going to be taking you through how to upgrade your terracotta pots and give them a more designed and aesthetic look by painting them. Now, I'm going to be telling you about 5 simple painting techniques that can make your terracotta pots look gorgeous and go better with your interior decor. So for this project, you obviously need terracotta pots, new ones or the ones you already have lying at home. I have 3 new pots here, 1 old terracotta tray that I plan on giving a new look, and 1 pot in which unfortunately I already have a plant, so this is going to be a little different. So I have 5 different pieces here which I'm going to use to show you 5 different painting techniques that are extremely simple yet can give your pots a really beautiful look. Before we get into the painting techniques, here are some general pointers to keep in mind. Number 1, ideally paint a terracotta pot that is empty and that does not have a plant in it. Number 2, the pot must be dry, and if you find it a little moist, just leave it out in the sun to dry. Number 3, wipe the surface and the inside of the terracotta pot with a brush or a dry cloth to remove dust and any other loose particles. And now it's time for my morning cup of coffee. But then I don't really like coffee that much. I'm a tea person through and through. So what am I doing here? I'm actually about to try something that has fascinated me while watching certain other creators create some very cool air clay craft where they use coffee to give a little bit of color, a little bit of beige and warmer undertones to their white. So that's what I'm going to be trying with all our pots today. They're going to have this base coat of a warmer white, a beige-like color that I'm going to be achieving with coffee. So the first technique that I'm going to be showing you guys is the one using masking tape. So we'll call it the masking tape technique. We are finally ready to get started with the first technique, and we've got our paint here ready. We've created this color with white and a little bit of coffee to give us this really creamy, chalky, warm white, and I'm going to use this color as the base coat. So let's start applying. I'm going to give it the first coat of paint and then let it dry before giving it another coat, and then I'll decide if that's thick enough for me or I want to give it the third coat as well. It's extremely important that you measure your pot first so that you can get it geometrically precise. You don't want to start off and then realize that the last triangle is a little too big or a little too small. So now we can start masking out the triangles so that the paint doesn't leak and it gives us straight lines. So now I've finished painting all the triangles at the base, and I'm using this masking tape that we had initially used to ensure all the triangles are of the same height, with another tape that I've now put on top to create this little bit of space in between the 2 masking tapes where I'm going to have a thick band of black. So the second painting technique is using a string, and I'm calling it the string method. So we're going to use this spot for this method. I've already given it a coat of white spray paint, which will make it easier for me to give the top coats. So let's get started on that. So this spot is now ready. It has been drying for about an hour. It has had 1 coat of spray paint and 2 coats of color. Now we're going to use the twine and do the threading in order to give it the design on top. So now the pot is ready and we have the twine forming a certain kind of shape across it. Now we're going to use spray paint, black spray paint, and cover this pot with black spray paint, and wherever the twine is there, it's going to retain the original base coat color, and everything else, the exposed parts, are going to become black. We have now finished spray painting. It's dry and it's time to check out how it looks beneath the twine. So I'm really happy with the way this part has turned out because the ropes were flush against the pot. But the one where we used the rope against the other ropes, that area black spray paint has leaked in and the white area has been reduced to a very thin line, which is ruining the look. So I'm just going to be touching up those areas with black paint. So I've touched up the part where I felt the white did not look nice. And now this has turned out to be a little too simple for what I had in mind. In fact, the best part of it is this area. Where it's created this really nice effect, the twine. But I want to add a little more texture to this one. So what I'm doing is using an old toothbrush here, dipping it in my paint, and I'm going to just be spraying it on top of the pot to create like a spray effect. So now we've come to the third painting method, which is the stencil method. So now we're going to be using this tray I have here. It's an old tray and I've already given it a spray coat of white. And on the outer surface, we are going to be using stencils to create a design. Now you get a variety of stencils in the market. They come in plastic sort of bits with a design already cut out in them. Pre-cut out designs, so you can just use that. You also get stencils where there are letters, alphabets, and you can use this to create some sort of wording on your pots. And I'm going to be using this variety of stencil today, which is a peel and stick. So for certain other varieties like these, you will have to either use a stencil tape or stencil adhesive to place them firmly on the surface, because you don't want them slipping when you're working on it. But for this one, like I said, I'm going to use this. It's already a sticker format, which means I can just stick it on the surface and then apply the paint on top on the design, and then I can peel it and reuse it. So that's the best part about the stencil. I think the adhesive holds up to 20 uses after cleaning. So that's the great thing about the stencil, easy to use. So now let's get started with applying the top coat on top of the spray paint. So now the pot has been drying for more than an hour and we've given it 2 coats of this color, the paint. And now it's time to add the design element with stencil. So I'm just going to open up the stencil. I've chosen this particular design. Now we've come to the fourth method, which is the freehand method, and as the name suggests, it simply means being able to draw directly with your hand, freehand. But instead of using a brush, it's a little harder for people to actually be able to bring out perfect shapes with the brush if you're not already an artist and you're used to doing this kind of stuff. So this is what we're going to be using. This is actually a pen, an acrylic pen for porcelain and glass, but it also works on terracotta. It actually works on the spray paint coat, which kind of has a little bit of a glossy finish. It has a little bit of a slippery finish. So on that, actually this works really well. It's in black, and so I have this pot here. Actually not the ideal thing to do. I've given it a spray coat of white, but as you can see, there are air bubbles lifting the paint up. So it's not ideal because there's a lot of moisture trapped within, and obviously we've not given a coat of paint inside and we've not sealed the inside. So this is not the ideal way to do it, but I'm just going to show you the freehand method on this pot. So let's get started with this pen. But before that, there are a few spots where I'll need to touch it up where the paint has come off. So let me just do that. I'll give it a top coat, just one single coat, and then I'll get started with the freehand drawing. We've now come to the fifth and last method of designing or painting a terracotta pot, and for this one I'm going to be using a sponge. I've chosen a big pot for this because it's going to be easier to design something of this size with a sponge. So I've given a base coat here in spray paint, again in white. Now I'll give the top coat and then we'll get started with the design. So now the pot has been drying. This is our fifth method of designing a terracotta pot, and this has gotten 2 coats of top coat and it's been drying for several hours now. So for now, this method is called the sponge method, where we are just going to use the sponge to create the design. The sponge has a nice texture. So rather than just dip it in paint and dilute the paint and make it watery, I'm going to just apply it with my finger so that it doesn't go into all the crevices, and so that when I press, I get an effect where there is some amount of parts, little bits of white that shows through the black. So let's get started. It's the next morning and the pots have been drying out for about 24 hours now. The last and final step before I get to use my pots is this one, where I apply a coat of acrylic varnish, or you can use several waterproof sealants that even come in the form of spray cans. So now the only thing to keep in mind is that this particular varnish will give a glossy look to the paint. So it's something that you may or may not like. Now let's say for textured pots, I prefer the matte finish. So for these 2 pots, I'm not going to be applying the varnish outside. I'm going to only be doing it on the inside. Whereas for pots like this, which already had a very smooth finish, it's just having a little bit of light now bouncing off of it. I've already given a coat of varnish and just a little bit of gloss is there, which suits it just fine. So depending on your preference, you can give it on the inside and the outside. But ideally, if you're using your pots outside of the house and it's going to be exposed to the elements, then I would suggest you give a coat of sealant or varnish on both the inside as well as the outside of the pot. And with that, we've come to the end of this video on 5 painting techniques to upgrade the look of your terracotta pots and then how to style them. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and there are so many ways you can experiment with these techniques. You can choose your own colors, you can choose your own methods, and of course you can experiment with trying out new techniques. Do share with me in the comment section below if you try something new and how it goes for you. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give this video a like. Consider subscribing to my channel and press that bell icon to stay notified about all our upcoming videos. Thanks for watching and have a great day.